Salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sean Kibia, and this is the newest edition of the Weekly Hero, getting you all caught up and talking about all the big things that's gone on in the world on the big screen and sometimes the small screen in the world of comic books and superheroes and all that types of good stuff. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And of course, joining me here today is the editor, if you will, of the Weekly Hero magazine. It's, of course, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, it's great to be here. You know, there's so much great news coming down the pike from that Super Bowl and Endgame ad. Oh, man, I'm so excited to do the Weekly Hero today.
There is a lot of stuff for us to talk about here. So we got a whole bunch of things we're going to go through. Let's start things off, Robert, right off the top with this. Let's talk about Endgame for a second. So we talked on the John Campea show a little bit earlier today about the fact that, the Russo brothers are talking. They're saying that right now, the cut of Endgame is still hovering around 3 hours. Now, of course, we remember there were reports that, Thor Ragnarok, getting close to the release, was hovering around 3 hours, like 2 hours and 50 minutes, something like that. And then by the time the film actually came out, they did a significant edit on it, and it ended up being much shorter. But we talked about that before. The thing I want to focus in on is this. In the Endgame, in this whole comment that the Russo brothers talked about, they mentioned that they have done a few test screenings of it. And I always tell everybody, never listen to anything about test screenings because it's always fake. Well, it's fake unless it's actually coming from the directors. So,
right.
So the Russo brothers are telling us that they have now done 3 test screenings. And they're saying it might be the best reactions they've ever had to their test screenings. And the two of the times that they did the test screening, with it being at about 3 hours, they said not a single person even got up to use the bathroom. So let me ask you this, Robert. We've talked about our anticipation level of Endgame and how, excited we all are. I mean, Infinity War certainly contributed to our excitement of it all. But honestly, with the Russos saying stuff like this, and granted, they're the directors of the film. Of course, they're going to be saying good stuff. But honestly, could we be looking at, like with the great short but rich history of the MCU, with all the incredible films we've got, could this actually be one of those times that a movie that is built up to actually delivers? Could this be the best MCU movie we've had so far? I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Well, like I was saying, I can't help but equate this movie to being the Return of the King, but instead of being 3 movies, it's 22 movies. And in terms of what they've built up, look, as I said before, Infinity War exceeded my expectations. It really did. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I knew nothing about the film. The world premiere was the night before the first press screening, so nobody knew anything. There was no spoilers. There was nothing, and I was so delighted by this epic sci-fi fantasy comic book smorgasbord of awesomeness. And I think with Endgame, they knew where they were going. The MCU and Kevin Feige and his teams of filmmakers, they really have figured out as they've gone along how to hone what it is that they're doing. And I really think that we're in for something. Look, if it's 3 hours long and it works, it works. They know what they've got. And I think if you loved Infinity War, I think we're in for something that's going to pack an emotional wallop, an action-packed romp, a sci-fi epic, probably a tearjerker, all rolled into this confection, the likes of which we have never seen before. At least that's what I'm thinking, and I'm damn excited about it.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the Russos are saying this is like the best reaction, again, I take that with a rather large grain of salt because it's their movie. It's the best cake I've ever made. Well, that's great to know that you think so. But here's what makes me think, we get a lot of hype into a lot of movies. Here's the stuff that makes me think that maybe, just maybe, this really could be that movie. This could be the cherry on top, that maybe we're getting into possibly the greatest MCU movie ever, maybe the best comic book movie ever. And here's the main thing. It's not the reactions that the Russos told us about, because they may be true, they may not be true, whatever. Maybe he's just looking at those reactions through rose-colored glasses.
Right.
The thing that really sticks out to me is the fact that there has been, like an orchestra, this building crescendo as we move from one part to the next to the next. And up until now, I mean, you have to go all the way back to Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 2 to when you can arguably say the MCU made a significant misstep. You got to go back a lot of films before you can say that, because other than that, it has been win after win after win. Not all of them have been better than the previous, but it's been win after win after win after win. And when you look particularly, first of all, you can never understate what Joss Whedon did to even establish this whole thing. I mean, that can't be overemphasized nearly enough. I mean, the fact what he did with that first Avengers movie that really set the tone for everything. But building upon that, the Russos then came in. They gave us Winter Soldier, which to some people, by the way, Robert, to some people, that's the best comic book movie ever made. To some people.
Yeah, a wonderful, wonderful film. And, you know, that
absolutely.
was when they first started. Well, they really started talking about how they were going to examine different genres of films within the MCU. As we've talked about, the Winter Soldier was a 70s conspiracy thriller, all the way to hiring, you know, Robert Redford, who famously starred in both All the President's Men and 3 Days of the Condor. I mean, can you imagine? And he agreed to do it, which was a huge, like, having Robert Redford play, you know, a secondary role in an MCU movie and then turn out to be the villain. And then, of course, you had Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, which was a delightful confection, this sort of very comic heist movie, bringing in Paul Rudd and his comedy stylings. I mean, who would have thought? And of course, that used to be an Edgar Wright project that they had to retool, but that worked like gangbusters.
Right.
And then, of course, Doctor Strange shows up, and they go into the mystic realm. So you go from the quantum realm to the mystic realm. It's just amazing, and they've been able to make it all work together. Now, Captain Marvel, even though you had Guardians of the Galaxy, but Captain Marvel is their first real. I mean, we're going into the Kree-Skrull conflict. It's just incredible what all the threads that they've pulled together into this tapestry that I don't think it's unprecedented in Hollywood history. Nobody's made anything like this work.
Just going back to the Russos, though, like, so the Russos come in, they do Winter Soldier. Then they follow up Winter Soldier with Civil War. To some people, the greatest comic book movie ever made. Much like to some people, Winter Soldier is a lot of people's favorite movie, comic book movie ever made. Then you get another one where to some other people, that's their favorite comic book movie ever made. And then they steamroll that into maybe their crown jewel up till now with Infinity War. And so then we get Infinity War. So I look at the Russo brothers and what they've been able to do. They've been able to take this stuff with a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the groundwork laid for them. And they were able to come in and very skillfully build on top of that. See, some directors could have just come in and tried to swim in that pool. Say, oh, good, we're just going to enjoy all the groundwork that's been laid. The Russo brothers came in and said, okay, all this heavy lifting, all this groundwork, all this foundation laid. Now let's really make that pay off by building on top of it. And that's what they've done with Winter Soldier, with Civil War, with Infinity War. And it's these types of things, Robert, that to me, I mean, that's great that the director says the test screenings are great. Wonderful. That's great to say, oh, it's so good, we got to make it 3 hours. Okay, whatever. Right. But it's that track record to me, Robert. It's the track record to me that suggests to me, hey, they've been now working at this thing for a few years. They got a few films under their belt, and they've always been heading towards this one goal in this one direction. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm usually the very pessimistic guy when it comes to, is this going to be better than this, or is this going to be the greatest thing ever? I'm usually the very pessimistic guy. And I'm certainly not sitting here saying, Robert, that this will be the greatest MCU movie ever. But I'll tell you what, I am not going to guffaw at the notion. I am not going to laugh away the notion that this could be the best one we've ever had, simply because the track record and the precedent we have suggests that it's very, very possible. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, the thing is, look, there's a lot of people like myself. I mean, Superman the movie is a different kind of a comic book movie than Infinity War is. Superman is kind of unto itself, but Infinity War is the most comic booky it the same way I felt when I was reading Crisis on Infinite Earths, or when I was reading the original Infinity Gauntlet comic. I mean, they were able to distill what made comic book reading so much fun and put it in a movie, which is something I don't think anyone had ever really done like that, especially on such a grand scale. And beyond that, the Russos were able to take other directors' creations like the Guardians of the Galaxy. They even Taika Waititi's take on Thor. They were able to take all of those disparate characters, the way Doctor Strange was portrayed, and they brought them all into one movie, and they juggled. I mean, we saw that they were going to be able to do that after Civil War. I mean, they did a good job putting these characters together, but having to make all of those characters interact and keep their own personalities. The Russos didn't come in and go, well, let me change the Guardians of the Galaxy and make them more like we want them. No, those were James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. We had, Taika Waititi put his own flavor into Thor. We saw a little bit of that in Infinity War. Then we saw the Doctor Strange that Scott Derrickson had created, brought in, and they had taken all of those disparate takes on the characters, retained them, and then still added their magic fairy dust that we saw in Winter Soldier and then Civil War, and they created a souffle that is a delicate souffle that could have deflated at any minute, and they made one of the great comic book, sci-fi, fantasy, balls to the wall epics that we've ever seen, and it could have fallen apart on any number of levels, and it didn't. It didn't, and I think they're going to stick this landing, man. 22 movies.
Let me ask you this though. Let's rein in the enthusiasm for a second. Okay, I think we both think there's a good chance this could be the best MCU movie ever, maybe even the best comic book movie ever. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we just kind of think there's a solid chance.
Right.
But let me ask you this. As a fan and as somebody who has watched all these films multiple times, honestly.
More than I care to admit.
If there was one or two points of concern going into Infinity War, like, okay, this is what I'm worried. This is the things that I would be worried about. Like if I was a producer, or director, or an executive at the studio overseeing this, here are one or two things that I'd be a little bit nervous about or a little bit worried about that could unravel a little bit or whatever. What would those things be to you as a fan who watches these films so closely? What are the couple areas of concern that you might want to point out?
That's a tremendously good question. And I think that really the one thing that I worry about most is the story that they're telling. Can the actual story itself support the weight of the expectations that not only I, but the rest of the audience are putting on these films? Because, I mentioned Return of the King, but Return of the King was a movie about the end of the world. So the Lord of the Rings movies are leading up to, are they going to destroy? Are they going to be able to throw the ring into the crack of doom? Will the riders of Rohan make it to defend Gondor? Will Mordor sweep over the world? Will Saruman? What's all going to happen? I mean, they had a clear path that the audience understood where they were going. But after Infinity War and after the snap, what's the story they're telling? I think that's the thing that interests me the most. We have no idea. We've seen glimpses that the world is in a state of despair, but what's the story? We knew that Thanos was going after those Infinity Stones. One of the really interesting things is I have no clue about what this movie's even about. Are they going to try and go back in time to the quantum realm and stop the snap from happening? Can they even do that? We have no idea. And so the thing that I worry about most is the actual story going to be strong enough to support my expectations? And I think that because we have no idea, I think that they've been holding it close. The cards they're holding are very close to the vest because they know they do have the story. I just love the idea that I have no clue what that story actually is.
Well, I'll tell you what,
which is great.
I've got two concerns. I got two problems that would keep me awake at night and worry about when considering, just how great can this movie be. And my two concerns going into it would be, number one, something I've mentioned many times before, and that's, if I were to point out one big weakness of Infinity War, was that it did feel very heavy under its own weight. Like it was bursting at the seams. They packed in a hell of a lot of stuff. I would even maybe suggest a little bit too much. And there were times in the film where you could feel the top heavy weight of it, right? But like a great championship defense, it bent, but it didn't break. You know,
Right.
It bent, but it didn't break. So I would say going into Endgame, that would continue to be one of my little nervous factors is could they try to be doing too much? Sometimes you do so much that nothing gets the proper attention. You know, you try to do so many things and you don't give enough attention to anything. That would be one. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying that would be one of my fears.
Sure.
My other fear is something you kind of highlighted there a second ago, and I'm glad that you did. My other fear is the whole concept of time travel. Because Robert, notwithstanding Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which did it as good as any film ever trying to handle time travel, I have seen so many movies and so many TV shows and whatever constantly use the time travel trope to undo something that shouldn't have happened, you know? And more times than not, it's not any good. More times than not, it's not any good. Now, Back to the Future clearly works. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, clearly works. There's time travel stuff there. We can point to a number of them that do. But for every one I feel like that you point out that does work, we could probably point to 3 or 4 that didn't. And it's just one of those, plot points that if you use it, there are so many ways it can go wrong. There are just so many ways it can go wrong. So, and look, you and I have pointed out several times, we don't even know if they're using time travel in this. We don't even know if that's actually what they're doing. We're all speculating that. So I think this could be the greatest MCU movie ever made. And the two things that'll keep me up at night, worried a little bit till we see it, are going to be, do they try to overdo it? Because, sometimes, like Bill Belichick, the Patriots coach, say, sometimes he's got to simplify it a bit. Like, do they try to do too much? And then if they do use the time travel trope, I'm a little nervous how that goes because it doesn't always work out well.
The one thing about doing time travel, I think the biggest problem with using time travel as a device, and it was really exemplified in this pretty good Star Trek Voyager episode called Year of Hell. It was a really compelling 2-part episode, but when they use the time travel trope, it just resets everything back to zero. So the story you've watched had no consequences.
Right.
And that's the thing that I have always hated about time travel stories is when they just reset everything back to zero and the story you've watched ultimately was meaningless.
Didn't mean anything.
It didn't mean anything. And I think that the Thanos' accomplishment, the fact that Infinity War ended on a very decisive victory, that has to mean something. You can't just erase what Thanos did. Thanos got rid of half the universe.
Right.
Now, no matter what happens, I hope that the horror of that victory is not simply wiped away. I mean, imagine if we could go back and erase the most shameful parts of human history. It's those shameful parts that give us meaning, so we know, well, we shouldn't do that again. And if they do something where there is no consequences, then the 22 movie storyline that they've been telling will sort of, I think, lose its thematic resonance in a way if they don't incorporate some kind of overreaching or long-lasting consequences to the MCU. But I have a feeling they're not going to do that. I have a feeling no matter what happens, we're going to feel this ending. It's not going to go back to rainbows and unicorns and everything goes back and gets reset to
never
one.
Happened and Ultron never happened. And that's
not going to come to pass because I think they're smarter than that. Even with Crisis on Infinite Earths in the comics, Supergirl died. I mean, the Flash later, of course, came back, but Barry Allen was out, man, and it was rough. I remember reading those comic cover of Crisis on Infinite Earths 7. Superman is holding up dead Supergirl in his arms, crying. It's a great cover, and all the superheroes were surrounding him. And I was like, oh my God, even as a kid, I'm like, this is some nuts stuff. I can't believe they killed Supergirl.
And you know what? And that goes, one of the big criticisms I've always had of the MCU, as much as I love it, has been the whole fake death thing, which undermines the sense of consequences. And you're right. How this is going to be a very tricky puzzle for them to kind of, a very tricky, like a mess of yarn, if you will, for them to unravel and to piece together. And if they can do it, if they can do it, we're in for one hell of a movie.
I know. And if it's 3 hours, man, I want the power of Return of the King. You know, I want Annie Lennox singing Into the West coming up over those credits. And I just want to be sitting like a weepy mess in my chair, like,
well, listen, guys,
that's what I want.
The question I want to put it to you, number one, for all of you guys watching at home, is do you think there is legitimate potential, like over 30%? Do you think there's legitimate potential here that this could end up being the best the MCU has ever given us? And put on the skeptic glasses for a second. If you were to say there were one or two fears you had, things you're going to be a little bit nervous about, that you'd want to keep an eye on this film, what would those points of nervousness be for you? Robert and I shared ours. Now you share yours. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. And this is something that kind of came out this morning. That actually came out yesterday afternoon. We talked about it a bit this morning, but I thought, Robert, you and I would go into it a little bit more in depth here. Bob Iger said a while ago that, hey, yeah, I think there could be room in our movie slates for some R-rated stuff like an R-rated Deadpool. And he said that a long time ago. And I don't know why, but I didn't particularly believe him. I didn't necessarily particularly believe the High Lord and Emperor of all things Disney when he said that. I thought he was just being nice or being kind. Well, he got on an earnings call and he told his own shareholders, oh no, we are making more R-rated Deadpool movies and other adult-themed content. And that is what everybody's been talking about, Robert, is that they're going to do more R-rated Deadpool. And that's something you and I both didn't really think they would do because it doesn't fit with the Marvel brand. It doesn't fit with the Disney brand. Well, Iger addressed that specifically when he said, we are going to do these R-rated movies, but they will not be under the Marvel banner, and they will not be under the Disney banner. They're going to be under another banner to completely differentiate these films and others, so there's no confusion with our audience about what you're getting when you go into them. And Robert, I suggested to you earlier today that to me, those words made it sound like Bob Iger is talking about that Deadpool's going to get made, but he ain't going to be in the MCU. Now, you and I discussed back and forth about what are the further implications of that. If Deadpool's coming over but not going to be in the MCU, they're going to create some adult stuff. What does that mean for X-Men? I hope they keep X-Men separate from the MCU. I concur with you, though, when you say that you believe they are going to wrap them in. But let me ask you this, Robert. When Bob Iger says we're going to do more R-rated Deadpool and other adult-themed stuff, number one, what kind of stuff could he be talking about? And then number two, do you think all this adult-themed stuff will be standalone individual movies, or do you think they will be wrapped into an R-rated cinematic universe of their own making? How do you think they're going to handle this Deadpool thing and all this other R-rated stuff they're talking about?
Well, you know, since this morning, I did a little bit more reading about what's been going on, and there's a lot of unrest over on the Fox lot. But I think the easy answer, and I think the most obvious answer, if you Occam's razor applies here, is that they are buying 20th Century Fox. Mm-hmm. And with that, they're getting the Predator franchise, they're getting the Alien franchise, they're getting the Die Hard franchise. New Mutants is supposedly going to be, you know, R-rated, perhaps. They've got 20th Century Fox, and I know they're trying. There's a lot of people that won't be coming over in the merger, but there's a lot of executives and there's a lot of talented people at Fox that they want to retain. And they already have relationships with all these filmmakers. So it would behoove them to keep a lid on their actual plans, which I think is just to keep the 20th Century Fox brand alive. And they're going to bring over the key people that they need in order to make the transition smooth. So I think that's happening. But there's no reason. I mean, Deadpool, as we talked about, that's $1.5 billion plus of two movies that, by the way, did not break the bank. The first Deadpool was $60-70 million, cheap comparatively speaking. And, you know, you've got a star in Ryan Reynolds. Why wouldn't they want to be in that business? So I honestly think that they're going to keep the 20th Century Fox brand alive. Maybe they'll change it and call it 21st Century Fox. I don't know. And they'll keep making movies under the Fox banner, because before, you know, they had Hollywood Pictures. Disney doesn't even release the R-rated movies they made under the Hollywood Pictures banner, whether it's Ruthless People or whether it's Down and Out in Beverly Hills, or like even Richard Rush's Color of Night, they've been licensing out their old R-rated catalog titles to other vendors as if they're embarrassed. But if they have 20th Century Fox, they can say, hey, that's not Disney. Parents, 20th Century Fox is not the Disney brand. It's 20th Century Fox. They're going to continue to be the catalog and the movies that they've always made. So that will stop any kind of confusion in the marketplace. They won't start like Disney R. They'll just keep 20th Century Fox. That's what they're buying. And I really believe that they're going to look, Kevin Feige's probably chomping at the bit to get his hands on both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, like we talked about earlier. I mean, what cooler thing to have introduce Storm into the MCU by marrying Black Panther? You know, and that's, I don't know if that's going to happen, but of course it happened in the comic books and it was retcon. Who doesn't want to see the Thing fight the Hulk? And I think they're going to bring the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into the MCU as soon as they can. I would expect probably an announcement on the heels of the release of Endgame. They're going to release. They've been very quiet about these plans. They haven't even really sketched out Phase 4 yet. I think they're really waiting to unleash their plans. But like I said, like the Cylons, they've been slowly drawing up their plans against all of the movie-going audience because they're going to consume us all in the awesomeness that it's going to be Phase 4. And they're going to announce, I think they're going to call it the Fantastic Phase 4, and it's going to be introducing all these characters. They're going to answer all of our questions, but they're not going to tell us anything probably until after Spider-Man Far From Home comes out. Because beyond that, we really don't know what's happening.
See, there's a couple. I mean, there's a lot there you just said to unpack. Okay, so
Right.
so let's start with this. One of the reasons that I wanted, I'll be honest with you, I wanted, and look, I love Disney and everything, but I wanted Comcast to win that bidding war because Comcast made it clear that they were going to treat Fox like they treated Universal. Keep it intact, let it keep operating, let it keep doing its thing, right? Whereas Disney, it really did sound like they were going to strip down Fox for parts. Sure. And, take all the basic elements. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't really heard anything that's made me think otherwise so far. I still think they're going to strip it down for parts. But I'll tell you what you're proposing here is, to me, the best case scenario. To me, the best case scenario now is that Disney takes over Fox, but just keeps the company intact and lets it continue to produce movies. But I'll tell you what, Robert, if they do, I actually think they may keep the X-Men over there. I do not think Kevin Feige has drawn up plans for anything that has to do with any of the Fox characters to be, well, they're really Marvel characters, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? The characters who have been under Fox, I take Kevin Feige at his word and said, look, as of right now, this deal isn't even finalized yet. It still hasn't gotten its final approvals. So I think Kevin Feige has had all of Phase 4 charted out and sketched out for like at least a year and a half. I think he's had every one of his plans laid out. I think he knows exactly where he's taking Phase 4. So I don't even think that even if they bring X-Men and Fantastic Four into the MCU, which they probably will, but even if they do, I still don't think we're going to see anything about them until at the very earliest near the very end of Phase 4. And maybe the climax of Phase 4 will be the event where they bring everything in. You know what I'm saying? And so then how does this relate? How does that all tie in with, well, what does this have to do with the R-rated universe that Disney may be doing? And I like your idea of keeping Fox together. That way it's under a banner it's always been under. I just think that if they did that, it increases the chances by about 5% that they could just keep all the X-Men stuff. Maybe Fantastic Four is an exception, because I think Feige has been itching to get his hands on the Fantastic Four for a long time. But X-Men stuff, I don't know, just let it thrive in its own universe. I don't know.
I can't see it because they have an opportunity to reboot the X-Men from scratch. Fox has been making X-Men movies now for 19 years. Sure, but
you can do that even if they're still at Fox. You can still do that even if you just keep them at Fox.
Sure, but don't you want to see the X-Men interact with the Avengers?
Nope.
See, I do, man. I want to see that.
Mainly because of the big thing I said before. The one thing they bent but they didn't break. To me, the MCU is starting to feel a little top-heavy. It's starting to feel a little overcrowded. Now, some people will then say to me, but in the comic books, well, these aren't the comic books. This is a movie universe and it feels different. And I don't know. See, the other reason why I would love it if they kept Fox together and made X-Men movies is because we would then get more movies. We would get more comic book movies, every year than we're going to. I don't know how often they're going to get around to the X-Men universe in the MCU when there's, they've got more Black Panther coming, more Doctor Strange coming. There's going to be a big emphasis being put on Captain Marvel. That's going to be a huge thing. They're doing more Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to have more of this, that. And we got a Black Widow movie coming. They're going to be doing all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. But as far as the R-rated stuff goes with Deadpool coming in there and all that kind of stuff, I think that is what they're going to do. I think they're going to create another cinematic universe wherein all this adult material they're saying can live and play and thrive. And I think they're going to go that route. But I don't know, Rob, do you think they go that route with their R-rated stuff? Or do you think they just go all individual standalone films with their R-rated stuff?
No, I mean, maybe. But I really do. Look, you can't make a Deadpool movie and not talk about the X-Men. You have to do. They've got to do something. So maybe they'll sort of hybridize. I mean, they've done a really good job. Like they've shown the X-Men. There's that great shot in Deadpool 2 when they open the door and there's all of the current X-Men.
One
cast,
of my
like,
favorite moments of that movie. That was amazing.
Hilarious. So I'm sure we're going to still get that because, we never saw Deadpool's version of Cyclops in the proper X-Men movies. Cyclops was in them, but I'm not Cyclops, Colossus. We saw Colossus. It was the Deadpool version of Colossus, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead was that version we never saw. They didn't bring characters directly over from the X-Men proper films. And I mean, I always thought they might do Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but they didn't do that. So I really think that the R-rated Deadpool will maintain its sort of solidarity. It'll be its own thing. And they can use X-Men characters, but they'll use the Deadpool version of those characters. Whereas I think we're going to see the X-Men proper go to the MCU. But then, I'm looking forward. I'd love to see the Alien franchise continue as R-rated movies. The Predator franchise, another Die Hard. They keep talking about making another Die Hard. That's got to be R-rated because when they made Live Free and Die Hard, you couldn't even say Yippee-Ki-Yay. Yeah, they had to cut him off, So I think it's going to be interesting because Disney want Fox to continue R-rated movies, but it's going to be I just can't wait to see what's happening. It
is one of the more interesting facets of this entire thing. And again, I have to concede to you on this. I think you are right. It's not what I want, but yes, I do think you're going to get the X-Men in the MCU. I do think you're going to get Fantastic Four. Well, that was clear that we're going to get Fantastic Four in the MCU. It's not exactly what I want, but all the faith in the world in Kevin Feige. He's going to figure out a way to make it all work. And Deadpool, look, however they decide to navigate this R-rated material thing, I'm just damn happy we're getting Deadpool. Now I just want 100% confirmation that it's the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool. That's just what I'm waiting on. That's all I'm waiting on now. I hope so.
I think it has to be.
So. All right, guys, listen. Oh, go ahead.
John, wait a minute. Wait, I think we're at the part of the show where
yes, we are.
I was thinking today is a special day for the Weekly Hero.
It is?
It is because I didn't bring a figure this week, John.
Which is really odd considering you're at home. But yes, you didn't bring a figure this week. That's right.
I'm at home. You told me something that's pretty exciting to me. And I gotta throw it over to you because I think today is your day, John. It is your day to bring not just a figure, but a unique, perhaps the only figure on the planet Earth that exists.
It's true, Robert. It is now that time of the show where we talk about a collectible, a figure. Now, normally it is Robert's stuff because he's got one of the great collections on the planet. But today we thought we'd show this off. A little bit of background here. We have a viewer of the show named Ramiro. And Ramiro emailed me some time ago and said, hey, I'd like to make a figure of you. Is that permissible? Do you mind? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. And he made this figure of me and sent it to me, and it arrived the other day. And without any hesitation, I can tell you it is my favorite thing that I own right now. This is the thing that Ramiro put together here. It is a figure of me, of course, in my Bring on the Filthy shirt, my Jedi robe. And down here, you can see he even made Felipe the sentient dancing microphone with a giant Canadian flag. Of course, my Rebel Alliance hat. That's kind of like my trademark hat right there on this incredibly solid base. And that lightsaber you see in my hand, it actually lights up. This thing takes battery. I didn't put in the batteries yet, so that's why I'm not seeing it. It actually lights up. And he sent me not one, not two, but 3 different colored lightsabers. He sent me a blue, a green, and a red. So the lightsabers actually all interchangeable and can be used, as you see fit and put up there together like that. And it is amazing. I just hold this thing in my hands and I look at it, Robert, and I'm like, I cannot believe, number one, that somebody has the talent to make something like this. And number two, that we have viewers of our shows that have such a giving spirit that they just want to be part and contribute to this community and to what we do on the shows, that he actually made this thing, which blows my mind, and then sent it to me as a gift. And look, I have reached out to Ramiro, and I'm not giving his last name or anything because I don't want anybody else to bother him right now, but I have reached out to Ramiro and I've asked him, dude, first of all, so much gratitude, but how much does it cost you to make these and how much is your time? Because I want to pay you to make some more of these, because I gotta give one of these to my mom. I mean, I gotta give one to my mom, and maybe there's some viewers of the show that might want to watch it too. And he may have told me that he's making a Robert Meyer Burnett figure as well.
Well,
I love this thing.
I was about to say, no one's ever made me a figure before, and I have hundreds of figures of other people, but I also love the fact that you could use this figure and I could judge your mood based on what color lightsaber you've chosen to ignite for the day. Like if I walk into the studio and the red lightsaber's flashing, I'm like, uh-oh, I got to walk on eggshells.
Campy's in a mood today.
Right?
Yeah, so
I mean,
again,
what a cool thing though. Like you said, I mean, to have viewers and to have this kind of talent, people that would do these things, what a great vote of confidence about what you've done with your show and the community that you've built, that you fostered this kind of affection and creativity in people. That's great.
And, speaking of creativity, let me just show this one off too. Robert, you're going to have to tell me who it was, because I can't remember. I just got the text message that you sent me, but somebody made us a comic book cover, a Weekly Hero comic book cover. I'm going to bring it up for the audience to see right now. It's listed under Kiss Kiss Gang Bang Comics, and it's got you with the Kryptonite Spear, under the Weekly Hero emblem, of course, and the subtitle is Justice for Han with the question mark on it, which is marvelous. I just love this.
Han himself is in the logo where they have like the Image Comics logo.
I didn't even realize that was I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
I just noticed that now. That's amazing.
And the thing is, I don't remember. I've got the guy's name, but I don't remember it. I didn't know you were going to show it. I would have looked him up, but I'm going to look him up and I'll make sure that he gets all the credit.
Yeah, we'll give him credit. And I retweeted this as well. And it's just again, the creativity of the people who watch this stuff. So thank you so much, guys, for sending that stuff in and making us feel good. That's really nice. All right. Listen, we got a couple more issues that we're going to talk about here right now, Robert. And the first thing we're going to get into the second half of the show here is this. Now, the James Gunn controversy, we talked about that for a lot of weeks. The stuff with the old tweets and the getting released from Guardians and Disney and the backlash against his being released and all that kind of stuff. Well, another person added their voice to it today, or in the last couple of days, and that's Taika Waititi. When he basically was confronted and asked, hey, do you think you could direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3? And he just said, nope, I ain't touching that film. I am not doing that film. I'm still playing with Disney. I still want to do another Disney movie. We're talking about what it might be and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not doing Guardians of the Galaxy, because he said that'd be like, because this movie is James's. This is James's movie. And for me to go in there and direct it would be like walking into somebody's house and saying, hi, I'm your new dad. And this, I mean, it's funny in and of itself, but Taika is not the first director in the MCU to speak out about expressing displeasure over the fact that James wasn't there anymore. You mentioned Doctor Strange a little while ago. Scott Derrickson, the director of Doctor Strange, just recently tweeted out on social media that he still thinks it's wrong that James was separated from Guardians of the Galaxy, that he's not there. We had the entire cast of Guardians of the Galaxy sign an open public letter to Disney saying, bring back James Gunn, that they ignored. And then we've also got another one of his cast members in Dave Bautista saying, screw you guys. I don't even want to work with you guys anymore. I don't even want to work with Disney anymore. Right. And he called them some pretty nasty names, desperately trying to get fired from them. Like he wanted to get fired badly. So now this is still going on. And, you know, Robert, I suggested to you on one of our shows earlier this week that this is really the first time we're seeing discord within the MCU file and rank. You know what I mean? This is the first time that we've seen some dissent inside the MCU. We have never seen this before up till now. Up till now, it has been win after win after win, and everybody's happy, and it's all so great, and blah, blah, blah. And now this, and it hasn't gone away. You know, we all kind of thought, and I thought as well, that, hey, maybe, you know, with the cast signing the letter, that'll be the end of it. I mean, they probably still won't bring him back, but this will probably be the end of it. But now we have two directors. And by the way, I know for a fact that James is close with a lot of the MCU directors. Right. Including really good relationships with Kevin Feige himself, with the Russo brothers, on and on and on and on. And it's clearly not gone away to the point that even now, months after the fact, we still have Marvel directors coming out and speaking publicly. And you know, whatever small amount is being said publicly, you know, 10 times that is being said privately. Like that's just the rule of things, right? So let me ask you this. This is a problem that has still not gone away. We're now sitting in February. Robert, is this going to continue to be a problem? Because clearly they're going to have an issue trying to find the right person. We talked about this. They can find somebody to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but you're going to face a lot of animosity from that cast because you're going to walk into a cast that you know they all wanted the other guy to come back.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got a little bit of a directorial mutiny on your hands going on in the MCU. Let me ask you this, Robert. How big of a deal is this? And is this still, do you think, going to be an issue, say, by the time Endgame comes out?
I think it is because the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Kevin Feige and his team over at Marvel Studios have done a really great job working synergistically with their talent, specifically their directors. And they have to. They need talented directors who can still put their own imprimatur on these projects. Taika Waititi certainly did. Scott Derrickson certainly did. James Gunn, of course, look at Guardians. It's baked into James Gunn's DNA is baked into that. And to have filmmakers come over and do these movies, they must trust the studio. It's not like when you have studios come in and take over a film from a director. Marvel has done a great job working in tandem with directors. And those directors need to believe that Marvel Studios will take care of them. And if you've made two hit films that gross collectively together over $1.5 billion and you're not safe, I mean, it's not like James Gunn was like murdering puppies or something. He was always an agent provocateur. You know, he wrote a terrific novel called The Toy Collector. If you haven't read that, it's dark. He worked for Troma. Look what kind of movies Troma was making. And it's not like the things that James Gunn was joking about is unprecedented in his past. And yet he wasn't hurting anyone. He didn't egregiously aggress against another human being. You know, he might have been guilty of telling bad jokes or using poor taste, which was, by the way, Troma's stock in trade. Their movies are poor taste, a lot of them. And I think that if you get rid of a guy like James Gunn, who wouldn't you get rid of? And if you're going to command the budgets that they're commanding, $150 million, $200 million to make these tentpoles, I think directors want to make sure they're taken care of if they're going to devote their entire careers to these Marvel films, and at any moment they could be derailed. I think there's a trust issue that these directors now have with Marvel. Maybe not overtly, but you can't not think subconsciously that how far away am I to getting removed from movies that even have made $1 billion? I mean,
listen, Robert, we had somebody write in earlier and suggest that, one of the things, and you and I both, I think, thought would be a good PR move that could maybe really go a long way to overcoming this is for Alan Horn and James Gunn to privately agree, hey, can we say that you, James, helped us in our search for a new director for Guardians 3 and that you give your seal of approval on the new director? If they were to do something like that, I think that would go a long way to getting past all this kind of stuff. But let me ask you, Robert, what other ways, like, let's say you're brought in. You are Robert Meyer Burnett, Hollywood fixer, right? You're the Ray Donovan
I'm the
of this
Ray
situation.
Donovan of
You are
Disney.
the fixer. And they bring you in, they say, how can we fix this? Like, look, we're not going to hire him back. We've crossed that bridge. That's done. But in this environment now, what can we do from a PR point of view to kind of put this thing to rest and put this thing to bed? What can we do? Robert Donovan, what can we do?
I think you absolutely need to have James Gunn make a public statement and have him participate, or even make him announce, not make him, but have him announce how they're going to move forward. And everyone is aware that it's what he wanted to do, and it's his blessing. They're going to use his script. He's going to come out and say, "Look, this is my script. It's still what my initial vision for the movie is. It's still retained. It's going to be a great way to finish off this trilogy with these characters, and it's the way that I wanted it. And the person that's going to take over for me has my full." It's the same way that James Cameron was coming out right now. He's coming out in favor of Robert Rodriguez, and he talked at the premiere of Battle Angel Alita about their 25-year-long friendship and how Alita Battle Angel is the culmination of this friendship. I think if they can do something along those lines with James Gunn, maybe they could do it. But they've got to, and by the way, they've got to pay him. They got to pay James.
Yeah,
they're going to pay him, and not in like $100,000. They got to cut him in for some profit sharing. I mean, he will get that because he wrote the script, but they've got to make it worth it.
And he's going to be a producer. He's going to be a producer of credit on it, and he's going to be all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I think you just gave me an idea. One, it would be a very, very tiny thing, but when they pick a new director, let James Gunn announce it. Let James Gunn be the one to be able to get on Twitter and say, "Hey guys, I'm excited to let you know that, Peter Jackson or whatever, is coming on board. He's gonna take over. He's gonna take my script and incubate it and see it into life on Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and pull a Ben Affleck and basically say, I'm really excited to see where Peter or Jim or Christopher or whatever takes Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Can't wait to see it, something like that." And you're right, they'll have to cut him a check to do that. They will, but I think it would go a long way to kind of smooth the waters over a little bit.
Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, and I'm sure, knowing what kind of guy James Gunn is, he will talk to the cast, and any ruffled feathers will be smoothed over. And they look, it ain't show friends, it's show business.
It's show business.
You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And James Gunn will probably quote the great Michael Corleone. You want to do business? We will do business. I will do business with you.
By the way, James Gunn's in a position of strength right now.
Yeah,
because he don't need them anymore. He doesn't need them. They need him, and he knows that. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unravels. All right, let's get on now to our last topic of the day. Robert, in the midst of all the big announcements that, hey, Super Pets is coming, and hey, we got a release date for the new Batman, and hey, we're doing, Birds of Prey is coming, and hey, we got this happening. One of the things very, shocking by its absence and very obvious by its absence was not just the no announcements of any kind of Justice League, which we all know they've put that aside for a while. Mm-hmm. Justice League ain't going to be talked about for a while, but it's a film that they have insisted is coming. They've gone through 3 separate sets of directors, 3 or 4 separate sets of writers. They were supposed to be shooting it already, and right now there's still no mention of The Flash. As of right now, we still got nothing on the radar with The Flash. We've got movies that we never even thought they were going to do on the books. We've got again, I can't emphasize this enough, Robert, we have a Super Pets movie on the books. And still no word about the Ezra Miller Flash. Now, look, I'll tell you what, everybody knows I like Justice League. I know a lot of people didn't, and that's fine. The movie clearly has its problems. I'm not denying that. But I liked the movie. I had fun with it. I saw it like 7 times in theaters. And one of the things that I quite enjoyed was Ezra Miller's Flash. I like what they brought to it. And I was curious to see, I was curious to see what they would do in his own standalone film. But Robert, I mean, we were speculating about whether this movie was ever going to happen at all with all the delays and all the swapping of directors and all the swapping of the writers and all that kind of stuff. And now they make this next round of announcements and still no mention of the Flash. Robert, straight up, is this movie going to happen?
You know, I'm beginning to doubt that it is going to happen. And we all know that when regimes change at studios, projects die. There's no quicker way to see a project die at a studio than if there's somebody gets ousted and the regimes change, because the new regime doesn't want the what I wouldn't say stink or stench maybe, but the lingering perhaps the lingering doubt that if they were to greenlight a project that somebody else did and it failed, they don't want to be responsible for it. So I think Walter Hamada, you know, Iron Man and Shazam are those course corrections that is now, look, it was a huge win for DC's new direction. They kept it more of a standalone film. There's one mention of Steppenwolf, which unless you saw very quick one, if you didn't know who Steppenwolf was, it wouldn't matter to you at all. Nobody would ever know that. And Shazam is a great standalone property that they've taken a really interesting tactic with, in that it's, you know, it's more like the movie Big, that of course your wife's favorite movie, and that is a standalone film. Shazam is a standalone film. They can choose to wrap it into the great thing is they haven't gotten rid of the idea of the DC cinematic universe, but they're doing what they should have done in the first place, which was establish these characters in their standalone films first and then put them in Justice League.
I disagree. You know? I disagree. I actually thought they should come right out of the gate with Justice League. I thought they should have done it the exact opposite of Marvel and come out of the gate with Justice League. So you have your crown jewel characters, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, you know, in there. And within that context, you introduce the audience to these new cinematic versions of Flash, of Aquaman, or whatever. And then you can go off and do individual films from there based on strength. We saw it work with Aquaman, who was introduced first in Justice League. We saw it work with Black Panther, who was introduced in Civil War. We saw it work with Wonder Woman, who was introduced in Batman versus Superman.
Very true. Very true.
So I actually kind of thought, I don't think there's any one formula. The problem, and I keep telling people this, and I know you agree with me on this, is that the problem with the DCEU and the reason they had their troubles was not because they didn't do individual films first, it's because they didn't make films that the audience wrapped themselves around. That's the problem. If they made great movies that the audience loved and the critics loved and it was a box office darling, we wouldn't be talking about whether or not they should have done whatever individual films first, because they would have won, and of course winning cures everything. But with that being said, I kind of find myself agreeing with you, Robert. Every day that passes, I lose belief that this Flash thing is ever going to happen. And I think the point that you bring up is probably the most poignant one here. And that's the fact that Flash was an incubating dream child under a previous regime. And we got a new regime now. And it don't look like Walter Hamada has much use for the Flash at this point. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong, because I'd like to see it. But I think you're right. I don't think we're going to see this thing.
Well, what's really, I think, the biggest shame is I understand we all know the tragedy that befell Zack Snyder's family.
Yes.
But Man of Steel, you and I are both big proponents of that movie. I really like Man of Steel. The ultimate version of Batman v Superman, while not perfect, it certainly casts a spell, and it did almost made what, $820 million worldwide. I know it was very expensive, but here Zach was in the middle of making Justice League, deep into, I guess, post-production, and they panicked. The studio suits panicked, and they pulled Zack Snyder off and tried to scramble around, and I think that was their biggest mistake, because if we got a movie that was similar to Man of Steel, and it looked it looked like we were. We've seen in the trailers, there's a lot of scenes that we never saw from Justice League that were shot. There was a lot more backstory for Cyborg. There was a lot more going on with the Flash and his father, those kinds of things. I just think that they derailed themselves. Warner Brothers executives derailed themselves by flinching. They should have let Zack Snyder continue on. And I'm not one of these, let's see the Snyder Cut. There is no Snyder Cut. It was never finished, but they panicked. And that was their mistake. I mean, now they've been able to right the ship, but they lost a couple of years. And unfortunately, we might have lost that Flash movie as a consequence.
Well, you know, I see. I think the mistake happened, and I've been on record with this. I think the mistake happened before Justice League even started shooting, because we know there was a significant number of Warner Brothers execs, maybe even the majority of them, that wanted to out Zack Snyder before they started shooting Justice League. And the only reason they didn't was because they were too close to beginning production. And we know that. I mean, that's information that's undisputable. That's information that's come out and hasn't been refuted.
Right.
I think that's where the mistake was made. Once they got into it, they realized they weren't liking the film that was coming together. They were believing that once again, this was going to be a film that people weren't going to receive well, and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, they kind of did what they had to do. And look, you cannot put into words the depth of the tragedy that the Snyder family was facing. You cannot, there's no way you can adequately express that. But we have heard enough to know that wasn't the real reason he didn't finish the movie. We know that. And again, I'm good with the decision to pull him off the film halfway through, but I also would have been good with keeping him in there. It's just that the mistake was already made. I mean, if you didn't want him making the film, then it doesn't matter we're supposed to start shooting in 3 weeks. Oh, well, let's just do it with the director that we don't believe in anymore. But let's just go ahead anyway. I'll never understand that. Delay the film, put the director in place that you want and that you're comfortable with, and then move ahead. Don't start with the guy that you don't even want at that point.
But I just think, look what also happened to Suicide Squad. You know, it wasn't just Zack Snyder. David Ayer had to deal with them recutting the movie and hiring trailer companies to edit the film. I think that they were scrambling with both Suicide Squad, well, all three. The whole DC universe was in peril with Justice League, with Batman v Superman, that they decided to cut it, at the last minute because it was too long. And then Suicide Squad, which was a scrambled mess that they tried to figure out how we can make this better or more palatable. It's too dark or whatever it was, whatever the problems were that they had to, they were the executives at Warner Brothers, I think, are to blame for all of this, the derailing of their own universe, because they didn't know what they wanted. They did not clearly have the synergy with the filmmakers that we see work so beautifully over at Marvel. They didn't know they didn't know how to do that. And I think that was the biggest problem that and you're right. I mean, they should have not moved forward with Justice League if they doubted it.
You know, it's funny. So. I say this all the time. When a movie doesn't work out well, people like to point to studio interference. When a movie works out well, they call it teamwork. Because there is, and Robert, I think you and I will be in agreement, there is no studio that interferes more than the MCU. Kevin Feige is the law.
But and they don't.
But here's the thing, even to the point where, like, Joss Whedon tells a number of stories about how he's making this film and he got vetoed by Kevin Feige all the way through. Now, at the end of it, Joss Whedon, when they're making their first Avengers movie, goes, you know what, at the end of the day, it's mostly my stuff, but I realized the stuff that Kevin was throwing in there was really good stuff and blah, blah. Like, he wanted to have, like, Joss Whedon wanted the Wasp. He did not want to have Black Widow in his Avengers movie. He was not going to have Black Widow in the Avengers movie. He was going to have the Wasp and all this kind of stuff. And Kevin Feige came in and said, nope, we got plans for Black Widow. And so bump Wasp, put in Black Widow. And Joss Whedon's like, what are you talking about, dude? But they did it. There's a great story about how Kevin Feige, to the point, was so about it that even though he had an agreement with Edgar Wright for years to do an Ant-Man movie, Edgar Wright refused to change it to what Kevin Feige wanted it to be. So Kevin Feige pulled the plug on the movie. And they went their separate. The difference is the MCU movies end up being great and winning cures everything. Nobody talks about that stuff when the movie's good.
But there's a big difference because Kevin Feige worked as a working producer on 13 Marvel adaptations
Yes, he
before
did.
the MCU. So he saw what worked and what didn't work. And he's a creative producer. So he is steering that ship. He's the captain of the ship over there, you know, and he's bringing on people that are working for him that he's working with synergistically. I mean, that's what he's been doing. And sometimes I think that he doesn't have to look. The Avengers needed that kind of oversight. I mean, nobody had ever done a movie like the Avengers before, and there was a lot riding on it. And they had been building up to the Avengers over the course of pretty much, you know, how many films? 6 films or something before they did the Avengers, and that was all Kevin Feige rolling the dice, and he had to make sure it worked, and that's why I always say that there's that great synergy between the filmmakers and Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige is thinking out of the box. James Gunn, the Russo brothers. I mean, the Black Panther bringing over Ryan Coogler after him. He did Creed and Fruitville Station. I mean, he's made some ballsy choices with directors because he's picked out talent that other studios wouldn't. And he's won. He's rolled the dice with these people and won.
My only point about all that is this, though. You know, people say, let the directors make their movies. Guess what? There is one guy in charge of the MCU movies, and his name is Kevin Feige.
Yep.
And if you're going to be a director on an MCU movie, he'll give you a lot of freedom once he establishes what your parameters are, what you can and cannot do. And then he lets them go and does. And it's just that when other studios do that, it's called interfering. When Kevin Feige does it, because the movies turn out great, it's called synergy. And it's called teamwork, because winning cures everything. And it's just about making the best movies. And like, Rob, look, you've been a filmmaker. Like, look, holy crap. I was a filmmaker who I financed, wrote, produced, and directed my own movies. And
sold it.
And sold it. And I still had people trying to control what I was doing. There was like tons of, I mean, let's just face it. There's no such thing as a director, unless his name is Christopher Nolan. There's no such thing as a director who has just a blank check to go and do whatever you want. There will always be, I'm sure you've experienced that yourself as a filmmaker yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's very true. Very true.
But when you do it well, nobody minds. Because
nobody
it's winning.
minds.
I don't know. It's
true.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of unfolds. One thing is for sure, though, Robert. The DCEU right now looks like it's on a healthier path than maybe it ever has been. Yeah. And while no movie they've ever put out has ever matched to me that first one they put out, Man of Steel, which I just, you know, you and I both adore that film.
Yes.
They are definitely heading, everything it's feeling healthier now because, you know, there was a time not long ago, Robert, when you'd bring up DCEU, instantly the mood in the room goes down. Yeah. It's like, oh, DCEU. Today, we're starting to see that that's changing. Now Absolutely. You say DCEU, shoulders perk up, and people are like, oh, yeah, like Aquaman was so much fun, and Shazam looks great, and then we've got another Wonder Woman. Like, it's just, you feel, here's the word I feel like you can say about the DCEU that we've never been able to say before, momentum. It just feels like they've got real positive momentum going right now, and that's something they haven't had so far. And it's all due to the interference of Walter Hamada and the great directors he's been working with. And let's just hope they can keep it rolling. Let's just hope they can keep it rolling. Because Marvel's about to take a lot of the thunder again with Captain Marvel and Endgame. So let's hope they can keep that going. All right, guys, listen. That will do it for our predetermined topics. But, you know, we're doing the Weekly Hero today live, as we've been doing the last couple of weeks. So why don't we jump over and take some of your live questions that you guys have been sending in. So we're going to start this off, Robert, with our first question coming to us from Rama30, who writes, not trying to bring the mood down, but when you guys watch Endgame, will you ever be thinking, man, I wish Snep was here for this? I'll tell you what, Rama, I actually tweeted out, when I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse together, when I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse for the first time, I came out of that and I tweeted out, I love Spider-Verse, but all I could think about watching Spider-Verse was, man, Schnepp would have loved this. I mean, that was a movie that was right up his alley. And absolutely for sure. Yeah, for sure when Endgame comes out. I mean, he would have given his left nut to go and watch that movie. So yeah, that will definitely be going through my head. Rob, I can only assume it's going to be going through yours as well.
I saw Infinity War sitting right next to the big guy, and our excitement was palpable, and I'm going to miss not seeing Endgame with him.
I agree. All right, let's move on to the next question here. The next one comes to us from Mike Hill. Says, "I'm calling it Thor kills Thanos." Well, I mean, that's not a ballsy call, Mike. I mean, they basically set up in Infinity War that he's the one to kill him, but Kevin Feige seems to like to throw some curveballs. So, look, if I had to put $10 on it, and I was forced to put $10 on one person that kills Thanos, I would probably put my $10 on Thor as well. But I believe there are a lot of possibilities here. I believe Tony is a possibility. I certainly believe Nebula is a possibility. I certainly believe a resurrected of some sorts Gamora may be a possibility. Like, I don't know, Rob, you had to put some money down that. Who's killing Thanos?
I don't know if Thanos is going to be killed.
That's a good point too. That's a good point.
I don't think Thanos is going to die. I really don't.
Right. That's another option we just didn't consider. All right. Tom Ellum writes, in Endgame, is it possible that Thor could use the Bifrost to save Tony and Nebula? I think it's absolutely possible. He'd have to know exactly where they are, though. Am I not thinking of that right, Robert? But I'm thinking he would kind of have to know where they are, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you can't just beam into the darkness of the infinitude of the universe to find whoever you want using the Bifrost.
Beam into the darkness of the infinitude of the universe. I love. There's so many things that you say that I wish I could put on t-shirts. That's awesome. All right, let's get back over to it here. Rama30 writes, there's seemingly people upset of the Fox acquisition by Disney. Marvel will finally have all their characters under their control. But nobody complains that DC/Warner Brothers has had all theirs as well. Well, Roma, there is a big, significant difference here. There's a big, significant difference between that. And that big difference is this. We haven't had 15 years of another studio, for argument's sake. I don't know. What's a big DC team? Let's say Titans. Let's say Teen Titans. We haven't just been through 15 years of another studio having control of Teen Titans and their characters that have made 4 or 5 truly great, maybe 4 or 5 top 10 all-time comic book movies, and been able to do that while DC was doing their own thing. You see, with DC, It's always been there, right? With Marvel, it's different. We've had, with Marvel, Fox being in existence, making, first of all, starting this golden age of the comic book movie with X-Men. Then X-Men 2, one of the great comic book films. X-Men Days of Future Past, one of the top 10 great all-time films. X-Men First Class, that a lot of people really love. Logan, which was the best film of 2017. Deadpool 2. See, DC hasn't had, because I guarantee you this. If, let's say, Paramount had control of the Titans for the last 15 years, and they had beloved Cyborg movie, and beloved, Nightwing movie, and beloved Teen Titans 1, and then taken the teen out of it, Titans 2, and beloved films like that for 15 years, and then DC was taking them back, oh, you better believe there would be some people that would not be happy about that. Of course there would be. So it's very difficult to compare those two situations. Rob, how would you address that?
Yeah, it is very different. I mean, DC is owned by Warner Brothers, and they didn't. The Marvel was in dire straits at one point, and they had to license. They needed to make money, so they licensed out their characters to other people with no understanding that. I mean, Marvel had Captain America movies and Fantastic Four movies being made by Roger Corman, and they never thought that this day would come. I mean, who would have known that both Sony and 20th Century Fox would have, in a very short order of time, make the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies that they made? Nobody knew that was going to happen. Nobody knew that this golden age of comic book movies was in the offing. I mean, at the time, Marvel was trying to they were on life support. They were just trying to stay alive. Whereas Warner Brothers always had these characters in their stable. They were never going to go anywhere. So it's not really... do you think Marvel wants this state of affairs right now? They didn't want to do that. They, at the time, they did what they had to do to survive because the comic book industry was was not where it is now. I mean, actually, the paper comic book industry is certainly not where it used to be. But Marvel did what they had to do to survive, and that they're here today is a testament to the choices they made. But yeah, nobody would have ever known where we're at now. And Warner Brothers, they never were worried about they could carry their own comic book company if the sales figures were down.
All right.
So,
yeah, I like it. I like it. All right, let's move on here. Amin writes, Endgame will be the first time we see all the OG Avengers together again ever since Ultron. Well, that wasn't all that long ago, Amin. Thanks for all you guys do. Love the chemistry. And we love the chemistry too, Amin. Thanks so much for that. And yeah, it's going to be the first time in a little bit. It's going to be the first time in a little bit that we see them all together again, assuming we see them all together again. I mean, we don't know for sure that we're going to see them all together again, but assuming we are, it will be neat to see. All right, Roma follows up with, many people are saying Marvel has taken the lead in franchise films over Star Wars. While this is debatable, you can't dismiss this out of hand. I see more anticipating Avengers over Star Wars. Well, see, here's the thing, Roman. This is what I always try to bring up. Who's the best basketball player in the world? Well, everybody will tell you. It's LeBron James. LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world. But if you were to ask, who's the best player this week? Well, you're either going to get, or maybe even this season right now, like who's the best basketball player in the world? It's LeBron James. But who's the best basketball player right now? Well, right now, you can make an argument that it's James Harden. Right now, you can make an argument that it's Westbrook. Right now, you could make an argument that's Kevin Durant. Right now, you can make an argument that's the Greek Freak or Davis or whoever. You just run it down, right? But the best basketball player on the planet is LeBron James, even if he's not the best one right now. Over the past 40 years, there have been a number of times when a franchise or even just a set of films would be hotter in that moment than Star Wars. Sure, there have been a number of times that's been the case. Absolutely. But over the course of 40 years, you just can't debate the place that Star Wars has. I mean, here we are. It's been 40 years, and we've got another Star Wars movie coming out, and all everybody's talking about is, when the hell are we going to find out the title to this movie? You know, everybody's still talking. While I completely agree that right now, the MCU is Westbrook. The MCU is James Harden. The MCU is Kevin Durant right now. It absolutely is. What I would then come back and say is, talk to me again in another 30 years. Talk to me again in 30 more years, and we'll see who's the GOAT. And in that case, to me, like, who's the better quarterback right now? Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes? Well, maybe Patrick Mahomes, but who's the GOAT? It's Tom Brady. So it kind of depends on how you approach the question. So what's the hottest franchise right now? Oh, no doubt it's the MCU. I mean, to me, that's no doubt. But which franchise is the most influential, the most, all that kind of stuff? Well, if you take a step back and look at the big picture, to me, that's still Star Wars. And maybe in 10 more years, that changes. Maybe 20 years from now, that changes. But for me right now, it's the goddaddy of them all. I mean, that's how I see it. Robert, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I think I don't understand why we always are comparing these kinds of things, because they're just totally different from one another. The MCU is new. The MCU is new. It's different than Star Wars. I mean, I think that the fact that we have the MCU films, I don't see they're going away anytime soon. And there's a lot more MCU movies now than there are Star Wars movies. It's just a different thing. And it inspires a generation of people differently. I mean, like you said, Star Wars has 40 years of history, 42 years now. And it shows no signs of abating, with The Mandalorian coming out, and with Episode 9 coming out, and the Resistance TV series, and the books, and the toys, and the video games. I mean, it's not going anywhere. And I think that there's these two great franchises they keep delivering. I mean, there's another Bond movie coming out. There's Star Trek Discovery. It's great. As I've always said, we live in these fantastic times. We should all enjoy that. It's great, and it's great for all of us. Yes.
Right. For those of you who might be wondering, you probably noticed there, Robert's video signal is degrading a bit, so there's probably some internet traffic thing here, but his audio is still good. That's why I haven't been bringing up his picture the last minute or two. So we can still hear you really good, Rob. It's just that the picture quality's degraded a bit. So I'll just keep my pretty face on the screen for now. Jorge Sosa writes, I would like X-Men to separate, and if anything, maybe they could have a universe crossover movie with Avengers. Also, I just got my Infinity War Thor hot toy. That is some hotness right there, that Thor Infinity War hot toy. Robert, have you gotten your hands on that yet?
I have not got that yet, but that's a great figure.
Oh, see, I just drooled over the pictures of that. And, well, Jorge, I mean, you know.
Lightning. Yes.
Jorge, you know my position on this. You know I want the X-Men to be in a separate universe. That's what I want. But Robert is correct here. They are going to be put in the MCU movie. Oh, how I hope he's wrong. But, I mean, I think the reality here is that Robert's correct, and I do think they're going to end up in there along with the Fantastic Four. But, hey, I don't know. If they're going to create a separate universe, then maybe they do it. If they do that for Deadpool, maybe they have to do it. Now, as a matter of fact, I think Robert Meyer Burnett, actually, you've got some scheduled things you got to do. You have to get out of here, don't you?
I do, and I'm worried that my internet is failing me.
All right. Well, listen, Robert, I don't worry about it. I got the rest of this. We got a few questions here left. I'll cover these for myself. Robert, I'm going to bring you back up on screen, even though you look a little pixelated right now. Just remind everybody where they can find you and follow. Just let them know. Oh, it's not looking great. But where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel at on the Burnett Work.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining me, Robert. Appreciate having you. And of course, we will see you tomorrow on the John Campia Show.
And sorry, I'm losing you guys. I don't know what's wrong. I've been readjusting things in here. I might have pulled out a wire with my foot.
We'll be back. Don't worry about it. All right, Robert. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. I'll see you.
Okay, guys. So let's keep moving on here. So special thanks to Robert for being here for that. Let's see. Raymond Verrata writes, Star Wars Episode 9, Justice for Han, baby. Nice tie-in, Raymond. I like that. Nice tie-in. Anthony R. writes, in the Nolan films, Bruce started traveling from age 22 to 29, but in the comics, he traveled from 14 to 25. Do you think Nolan did this because Bruce leaving Gotham at such a young age was too unrealistic? That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Like, here's the thing. I was in this one discussion with a friend of mine, Anthony, who was kind of suggesting that they thought that just maybe, perhaps, they should have Bruce as being, 22 years old or something like that, right? Bruce being like 22 years old. And I was not a huge fan of that idea because there's also some discussion that if we're to believe that Bruce Wayne, the Batman, can do all the things he can do, I got to believe he's more than freshly out of diapers. I got to believe that's kind of one of the reasons why my favorite iteration of Batman is the mid-40s, grizzled, war-torn kind of Batman, because I believe he's seen the shit and he knows everything now, and he's got all the world's experience and all the world's knowledge and all the world's skills and all that kind of stuff. I just believe that a little bit more when he's older. So maybe that is something that was in, I don't know for sure, but maybe that is something, Anthony, that was in Nolan's mind when he was putting that together. It certainly would reflect my sort of thinking that I like my Batman a little older, a little more seasoned. It's cool that the Flash is real young. It's cool that any of the other characters, that Cyborg can be really young. That's all cool. But for that Batman character, for what he's supposed to be and what he's supposed to do, I like him a little more seasoned. So maybe that was part of Christopher Nolan's thinking. I certainly appreciate if it was, but I don't know that for sure. But it's a really interesting question, man. All right. Mark Blaza writes, I'm totally on board with the current 3-hour runtime of Endgame without bathroom breaks, bladder control. Dude, it's tough because sometimes, it's just true, right? You get to the theater and you think, okay, I don't have to go to the bathroom. I'm good. And then about 20 minutes later, you start to feel it. It's like, oh, no, now I got to go to the bathroom a little bit. And then 40 minutes after that, you're like, oh my God, I got to go to the bathroom, right? And just 20 minutes ago, you're like, okay, I haven't gone to the bathroom in an hour and a half, and that's cool, and I don't need to go to the bathroom now, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, it gets real bad. We were talking on the John Campia Show earlier today that, man, in a 3-hour movie, it would just be real nice to have that short intermission so everybody knows they can rush, take a bathroom break, top up their popcorn, whatever, and know that they're not going to miss any of the movie. the theaters will never go for it, but I think they should. And I think it would be a really cool idea if Endgame does actually end up being over 3 hours long. All right. Anthony follows up with, Robert, Hobgoblin is one of my favorites. That's a shame Robert's not here right now. Hobgoblin is one of my favorite Spidey villains. Is it time that we see him on the big screen? If so, can they pull off the orange getup? Here's the thing. I'm a big proponent of adapting costumes to the big screen. There are some costumes that lend themselves perfectly well to the big screen, and there are some costumes that do not. Can they do Hobgoblin? I think they totally could. I think you totally could. I mean, there's a number of villains that if you can do them as villains, you can do Hobgoblin as villain. I think you have to do a little adaptation with what he looks like. But hey, they just made Mysterio look, well, Mysterio doesn't even look all that comic true. He looks more Asgardian than anything else, but at least they put the fishbowl on his head, right? So who knows? Anything's possible. All right. Oruk Usaki writes, what the hell did I just watch? Brightburn. Dude, I'm telling you, I have been buzzing about this Brightburn trailer ever since it first appeared. I've been absolutely buzzing about this Brightburn trailer ever since it first appeared. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, James Gunn is producing this. It's basically a retelling and a re-envisioning of the Superman mythology, where this alien child lands on Earth to farmer parents, except it's not a good kid. Except it's not a good kid. It is a bad kid. And so instead of a superhero movie, it's a horror movie. If you guys have still not seen the trailer for Brightburn, oh my God, go check out the trailer for Brightburn. Because it's like, I remember the first time I saw it, it's like, I'm watching the first 30 seconds, I'm just like, this is just a blatant Superman ripoff. What the hell's going on? And then the twist in the trailer happens, and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I love it. Make sure you watch that trailer, guys. All right, Tyrion Lannister writes, I know technically not superhero related, but sci-fi genre anyway, 67 more days to the final Game of Thrones season. I tell you, I'm getting excited, and holy crap, that Bud Light Game of Thrones commercial certainly did a lot to increase my excitement. And I know Robert's very excited for Game of Thrones as well, and just 6 episodes left. Like, it's true, it's not even a season. I think it's insulting to even call it's not a season. It's 6 episodes. And I'm sure they're going to be 6 glorious episodes, and I can't wait for it to come back. All right. Comic Doctor writes, Campia versus Burnett. Who wins? Well, it all depends on what it is we're debating. If we're having a Star Trek trivia contest, I'm dead before the match even begins. There's no chance, no way. If it's pre-1960 cinema, he beats me every single time. If it's a model building competition, I would have to tap out pretty damn quick. There's a lot of things that he would completely smother me in. There's a few things I would smother him in, but it all depends on what it's all about. But you can watch Campia versus Burnett every day on the John Campia Show. Jared Vester writes, just from a curiosity standpoint, my most anticipated comic book movie in the 2019 is The Joker. I mean, it's hard not to be completely fascinated by that. This could kickstart comic book Elseworld movies. I hope so. You know, I've been saying for a while, Jared, that I love the notion of standalone comic book movies. That's what they used to be. And I don't think it's an either or. I don't think you can only have a world where it's only standalone comic book movies, but I also don't think we need to have a world where everything is shared universe. And I really hope that this Joker movie is as good as it could promise to be, and that it does introduce us to having studios go, oh, you mean we're allowed to make movies about comic book characters that aren't tied into a big, oversized superhero shared cinematic universe? We're allowed to do that? Yes, you're allowed to do that. I love my shared cinematic universe movies, but I also really long to have some good standalone movies as well, and I'm hoping Joker could be that. So, fingers crossed. Rude Shot writes, over under 30%, Michael Rooker to star in Suicide Squad. Ooh, I'll tell you what, Rude Shot, that's a good line. 30%'s a good line. I'll go under. I think it's an under 30% chance, but it ain't zero. I might even peg the line at a solid 20%. I would give Rooker showing up in Suicide Squad a solid 1 out of 5 chance. So I go 20, but 30 might be a touch high, but it's a good line. I'm going to take the under on the 30. All right. Anthony writes, I think this new Batman, I think this new Batman should be age 30, just 5 years into his career. Not a rookie, but not too experienced either. Build the character from there. See, I almost feel like going back to our previous conversation, Anthony, that you put in earlier about how Nolan approached it and all that kind of stuff. I see 30 is where he should start, and maybe 35. So about 10 years younger than the Batman we got in Batman versus Superman, because I think they were pegging him around 45, 46 in Batman versus Superman. So I'd say go about 10 years earlier than that. Have him still be a little seasoned, have some experience. He's not some new kid on the block sort of thing. That's how I go. So I'm not terribly far off, but I just personally, I'd add just like 5 more years onto your number, just 5, not 15 or anything, just 5 more years. I'd say go them at about 35, but they might actually go a little bit younger than that. So they might actually end up casting closer to what you're suggesting, Anthony. So let's see how that all works out. And by the way, I still totally believe they've already cast Batman. And we just don't know yet, and we probably won't know for a little bit. Top Herox writes, Captain America has to be one of the only characters I've seen in film or TV that I've liked more and more with every appearance. Oh, God, man, he is easily, you get it. You get it. Captain America is my favorite MCU character. He is my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe character by a mile, and I completely agree. Every time he's on screen, they're adding new depth to him, and I just appreciate that character more and more and more. And how epic was his appearance in Infinity War? You know, they're looking over, the train's going by, and then the train passes, and there's the silhouette of Captain America. She throws that alien tech spear at him. Boom! Catches it midair, and it's like, child, I am Captain America. Oh, I love that entrance. I actually think I like that entrance more than Thor's entrance in Wakanda later in the film. Those are 2 really great entrances. But yeah, man, you and me, man, our appreciation for Captain America, no doubt. All right. Damon Morton writes, my favorite composer is Hans Zimmer. He's great for a modern electronic score in Man of Steel and Inception. Who is yours? Obviously, my favorite is John Williams. He's the GOAT. And we're going to start applying that to composers. I mean, every single hummable, rememberable movie score probably came from John Williams. I mean, that's like bum 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 bum. Oh, Harry Potter, yeah. Oh, that's Jaws. Oh, that's Jurassic Park. Oh, that's Indiana Jones. Oh, that's Superman. Oh, that's Star Wars. I mean, he's the GOAT. And Zimmer's great. And his Man of Steel theme is one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, for me, the GOAT is definitely John Williams. All right, Eli, the creative, writes, over under 10%, Christopher Nolan's next film is Man of Steel. No, 0. I'll go 0 on that. Christopher Nolan's been pretty clear. He doesn't have a lot of interest in doing comic book movies anymore. So I will take and you hardly ever hear me say 0. I'll say 1%. I'll take the big 0 on that. I think there's a 0% chance on that. But oh my God, how cool would that be? How cool would that be? Ben Rayner writes, John, you're a fan of the father-son relationship in TV and movies. I am. What do you think of Lionel and Lex's relationship in Smallville? I love it. One of my favorite parts of Smallville, actually. And when I actually became a little less interested in the show, when Lionel became less and less of a presence in the show, it was that I really appreciate that. Now, I prefer more the emotional stuff, like, for example, the stuff in How to Train Your Dragon, the stuff in the original Thor, that sort of thing. But that Lionel-Lex relationship was one of my main hooks for me that really had me into that show, and I enjoyed it a great amount on that level. Ron Hall writes, mad respect for you both. Hawkeye, a man so skilled he can stand with gods and monsters, could be the Han Solo of the MCU. Actually, I never really thought of it that way, Ron. That's a really good way to put that. Could be the Han Solo of the MCU. I imagine him played with reckless abandon by Jason Statham. Your thoughts? Jason Statham, but there's and I mean this in the absolute best way, what he brings to this role, not Statham, but Jeremy Renner. What Renner brings to the role is a normalcy. You're right. He's a regular man who can go toe-to-toe with gods and monsters. But like one of the great things about like Ultron, for example, is that, he goes home. He has his family. He is a man. And there's Renner is able to bring that normalcy to it that I think highlights that about the character and the thing that I appreciate his character. I've still never wanted a standalone Hawkeye movie, but I love him as a part of the ensemble. I love that character as a part of the ensemble. I don't know that Jason Statham would give us that part. And I'm a big Statham fan. Everybody knows I'm a big Statham fan. Hashtag Han had it coming. But I'm a big Jason Statham fan. But I just don't know that he would be able, like, he'd be able to bring the badassery. No doubt he could bring that. In spades, he could bring that. Could he bring the other side of that coin that I think Renner really plays up well with the character? I don't know that he can do that as well as Renner. Maybe he could, maybe surprise us, but I quite like the way Renner does it. Either way, Statham as a Hawkeye, that's an interesting proposal there, Ron. I like that. All right. Let's see. Goku on DBZ writes, I have to say I think this season of Gotham has been killing it. P.S. Always love hearing your perspective on things. Well, thank you. You know what? I'll be honest with you. The last season of Gotham didn't sit well with me. It certainly had its episodes. There were certainly episodes that were quite good. As a whole, the season ended last year, and I never felt like the new season of Gotham starting up. Actually, and I've got it in my Hulu favorites list, and I go to my Hulu, and it's always telling me, hey, you got new episodes of Gotham sitting here waiting for you to watch, and I just never watch it. And I don't know, so I can't say anything good or bad about this season of Gotham because I have just not gotten around to it. Maybe I should. But I mean, I got so much TV. I don't have a ton of time for TV, and I still have so much I got to get around to. I haven't even started watching Jack Reacher yet, and I've been trying to watch that for months. I mean, there's a lot of shows I'm trying to get caught up on. A lot of people trying to get me to watch The Expanse. I haven't even started on that. Maybe at some point I need to get in, because I'm hearing from a few people, Goku, that this season's pretty good. I'm hearing from a number of people this season's pretty good. Some people told me it's not, but whatever. For the most people I'm talking to are saying it's pretty good, so I'll have to check it out. All right. Goku follows up, says, imagine supernatural crossover with DC Universe. I'm telling you what, there was a suggestion a while ago. Because Stephen Amell and Pilecki and Ackles from Supernatural, they're like three best friends. They're like, the three of them are like tight. They're tight. And there was the suggestion a while ago that they could have a Green Arrow Supernatural crossover. They're both on the CW. And if there's any show in the CW DC universe that could work in the framework of a Supernatural episode, it's Arrow. I mean, Arrow is interacting all the time with John Constantine, right? There's just something about the tone of Arrow that, you know, comes across working a case with Sam and Dean. I think it could work. They'll probably never do it, but I'm going to hold out hope that they do it at some point. All right. DJ Fart writes, Rob Chews, Justice for Han or a John Carter sequel. Ooh, I think, okay, I'm going to have to speak on behalf of Rob, but I think he would go John Carter sequel. Because what's done is done with Han, but I think he would like a John Carter sequel. I'm going to guess. I'll ask him that. I'll see what he thinks about that. Kyle D writes, how do you think Ant-Man escapes the quantum realm? That's a great question. I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Somebody actually suggested on my show the other day, what if the ant who was playing drums in that terrible post-credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp? I hated that. That was worse than the octopus playing the drums. The ant playing the drums was even worse. But somebody did suggest, what if the ant is the one who gets him out? And I immediately guffawed, but I thought, well, he does have some kind of connection to the ant. Maybe the ant. I mean, it's unlikely. But other than that, that is the $1 million question right now. How does he appear at that gate? How does he appear there? How did he get out of that quantum realm? Another possibility is that Luis comes by and finds him, because maybe Luis didn't dust. Then maybe Luis finds him and just hits some random buttons and shuts it down, and out comes Ant-Man. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities, but that is the $1 billion question, man. MW77 writes, Superman Birthright would make an awesome film. If I'm thinking of the right story, and I believe I'm thinking of the right story, the issue that would have is the same issue that I think a Kingdom Come would have. See, because Kingdom Come is an amazing. Oh, wait a second. I'm on the wrong one here. Kingdom Come is. The issue with Kingdom Come is that you have to have to truly appreciate that story, you have to have a certain set of pre-existing knowledge of these characters and of that world to really get Kingdom Come. Superman Birthright, if I'm thinking of the right Superman story, I think that would face the same kind of issue. It feels like you'd have to approach Superman or come to that story with a certain amount of pre-existing knowledge that just the average movie-going audience doesn't have. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's an interesting proposition. Okay, maximum effort 44T writes. Maximum effort 44T writes. What's up, John and Rob? Rob, fellow Hot Toys collector here. Just recently got Infinity War Thor. Somebody else has mentioned that too. Ragnarok Loki. Oh, that's cool. What figures have you picked up recently? Well, I know he was just telling me about a couple he just got in. One of them is the from the Michael Douglas movie. The Sharon Stone Michael Douglas movie where Sharon Stone. What's the damn Sharon Stone? Why am I freezing on the Sharon Stone movie? Basic Instinct. What? He just got a Basic Instinct figure. Because, Rob loves chairs. He loves his figures that have chairs. It's the Basic Instinct figure of the Sharon Stone character in that famous iconic scene where she's in the police station with her legs crossed. You know that one? He just got that one. And he's been talking about it incessantly. He has just been talking. I still haven't seen it myself, but he's been talking about it incessantly. So I know that's his most recent one that he's really been happy about. But that Thor one, man, that Infinity War Thor one is hot. That one is hot. Okay. Let's see. James Argento writes, I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will get released in 2022 or 2023 with Galactus in the post-credit scene. I mean, maybe, but that's taking a lot of that's just wild guessing. We haven't seen anything that suggests that, so that's at this point, James, that's just wild guessing. 2022 or 2023 seems feasible. It's not going to be 2020, that's for sure. 2021 is a possibility, but that's seeming more and more unlikely as each day goes by. But 2021 is possible. I feel comfortable with your time frame. I think 2022 is probably the sweet spot. Maybe even 2023, but that to me, James, seems like a good logical window of if the movie happens at all. And I'm starting to believe there's a possibility it doesn't happen. I still think it will, but I'm starting to believe there's a possibility they just may think this whole problem we've had with the Guardians of the Galaxy is more problems than it's worth. Let's just abandon it. Maybe. I don't know. But if they do it, I think this window you're proposing is a good fit for that. So I see that kind of happening. All right. Kyle D writes, do you think Robin will have a big part in Endgame? Or Ronan will have a big part in Endgame? I think Hawkeye will. I don't think they're going to call him Ronan. But besides, look, I have this discussion with my friends all the time. Yeah, but now he's Ronan. No, he's still Hawkeye. Just because he takes on a different moniker doesn't suddenly magically make him a different character. I had this discussion the other day, but now he's not Captain America. Now he's, what was the name? Why am I freezing? I'm totally freezing on it, but my brain is going in 1,000 different directions right now. But anyway, he's not Captain America now. He's so-and-so. It's like, no, he's still Steve Rogers. He's still Captain America. It doesn't matter. Do I think Hawkeye will have a big part in Endgame? I'll say this. I think he'll have an important part in Endgame. I don't think Hawkeye gets the lion's share of the screen time in the movie. I still think that's probably mostly going to be reserved for Captain America. And we've heard the Russo brothers say Captain America is going to have a huge part. Probably Tony, probably Thanos, if Thanos is even in it much, which Rob maybe thinks there won't. But I think Ronan will have, or Hawkeye, I should say, will have an important role to play. I think he'll have an important role to play. Nomad is what I was thinking of, by the way. Yeah. Captain America. Just who cares? No, he's not Nomad now. He's still Steve Rogers. He's still Captain America. That's the way I kind of feel about it. Legless Monkey. I love that screen name. Writes, do you think we will finally get a Batman shown with panda eye makeup? We know he wears it, but it magically disappears when the mask comes off. Didn't I might not be remembering correctly. I thought they kind of showed that with the Michael Keaton Batman. I could be wrong about that. I thought there was a time we took the mask off and he still had the black makeup around his eyes. I don't think they will. I don't know why they don't. I mean, so what? We know he wears black makeup around the eyes to blend in with the mask. Who cares? We don't mind. Like, have him take off the mask. But I don't know. It seems like filmmakers are hesitant to show that part of it. And I have no idea why they would feel hesitant about that. To me, it makes sense. But maybe they're kind of... So I don't think they will. I think they should, but I don't think they will. Emmanuel Perez writes, after End... would you want the Russo brothers' take on the next X-Men reboot, or do you think they need a break from Marvel? I think they need to start making other films other than comic book movies. I really do. And then come back to the comic book genre. You know, I think the real pattern that most directors should abide by, and it has worked for the Russo brothers, don't get me wrong, obviously it has, but I think the Christopher Nolan model is the model a lot of directors should take. Do your comic book movie, and then go away from it and do a different kind of movie. You know, because he never shot any of his Batman movies back to back. He did Batman Begins and then another movie. I think it was Prestige he did after Batman Begins. I can't remember the order that came out in, but I think it was the Prestige. Then he did The Dark Knight. Then he did Inception. Then he did The Dark Knight Rises. Then he did Interstellar. Like, so he went to other films in between the things, and it kept him creative. It kept him sharp. It kept him from just having focal vision or tunnel vision of, I don't know how to do any other type of story other than comic book stories, you know? And I think it just made him better at what he did. I would love to see the Russo brothers, for their own creativity, get away from comic book movies for a couple of years. Not 5 or 6 years, but 1 or 2 or maybe 3 years. Go off, direct some other type of project that has nothing to do with superhero movies, make you an even better and sharper director to come back and then do a couple more comic book movies. But that's what I'd like to see him do. Let's see. Kyle D writes, what do you think will happen at the end of Endgame? My theory is that Tony will sacrifice himself and they will start time over again before Infinity. I mean, there's a lot of theories right now, Kyle, about some people think all the original Avengers are going to sacrifice themselves. You know, that Tony will sacrifice himself, and Cap is going to sacrifice himself, and Black Widow's even going to sacrifice herself, even though she's got her own standalone movie coming. That Thor will sacrifice himself, and all. It's possible. I can't think of a way that narratively works, but look, sacrifice has always been a running theme of MCU movies. The heroes are willing to sacrifice to save the day. That's a common part in every one of them. I have no doubt that will also be a part of Endgame. Whether or not Tony sacrificed himself or not, I don't know. Whether they change everything by time travel or by resetting the universe with the Reality Stone, I don't know. I really have no idea where they're going to go with it. And that's part of the excitement of it, I think. I think that's part of the excitement. But certainly that proposal is something that could happen. That's on the table. All right. Final question of the day, guys, and we'll wrap up this installment of the Weekly Hero. It comes to us from MT, who writes, I fear Endgame will focus too much on Captain Marvel. Well, here's the thing, MT. If it does, then that will be what's best for the movie. I have total faith in that. If Kevin Feige thinks what is best for this movie is to have more focus on Captain Marvel, then that's what's best for the movie. What I would suggest as a film fan, don't go in there thinking, if they do this, then I'm not going to like it. Well, what if that's the best thing to do for the movie? And for the record, I don't think so. I think the lion's share of this movie will focus on Tony and Steve. That's where I think the lion's share of this movie will focus. I really do. I think it's going to focus on Captain America and Iron Man. That being said, if they put a lot of focus on Captain Marvel, then it will be because narratively that's the best thing to do. And what I don't think we as fans should do is create preconceived ideas that if they do this, I won't like it. And let's face it, we all do that. I do that sometimes. You do it sometimes. I mean, it's what we do. We shouldn't, but it's what we do. And let's just give them the benefit of the doubt of, hey, whatever direction they take this in, it will be the direction that they felt was best for this story, and they're the ones making the story. So let's take all this baggage of, I don't want it to be Captain Marvel, or I don't want too much time travel, or whatever. Let's take all that baggage and let's leave it at the door and just say, okay, Kevin Feige, Russo brothers, show me what you got. And then just take it for what it is and judge it on its own merits, and not worry about whether Cap will be the focus, or if Captain America will be the focus, or if Captain Marvel's the focus, or if Rocket's the focus. I mean, I'm just going in with the assumption that they're going to give us focal points that are best for the movie. And if they make Captain Marvel a focal point, then clearly in Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers' minds, they believe that's what's best for the movie. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And I wouldn't judge anything, MT, but we still haven't seen the Captain Marvel movie. For all we know, once we see Captain Marvel, we're going to think she's the greatest comic book character. She's the greatest MCU character. I doubt that. Captain America's my favorite, but who knows? I might see Captain Marvel and go, Captain Marvel's my new favorite MCU character. You might too. So let's not bring too much baggage with us to the movie. You know what I'm saying? That's just my suggestion for now. We all do it. I do it. I'm doing it with this time travel thing. I mean, we all do it. But I'm saying let's try to minimize it, and let's really focus on leaving our baggage at the door of the theater once we get there, and just take the movie for what it is, and not create some kind of destructive checklist. If they do this, I'm not going to like it. Let's try to get rid of that thinking. You know, I need to do it. You need to do it. We all need to do it. And let's just see what they give us. And hopefully it'll turn out great. And maybe it won't. Maybe it will. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment and this issue of The Weekly Hero. Thank you so much for coming by and being a part of it. I, of course, want to thank you on behalf of Robert Meyer Burnett, who is not here right now, but make sure you follow him on his YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and make sure you follow him on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. It's truly an honor to do this stuff with Robert, and I hope you guys enjoy having him on these shows as much as I do. Don't forget, guys, we'll be back again tomorrow for the John Campea Show. Make sure you come by and join us. We already got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Hope you come along for the conversation. So, the printing press is shutting down. The lights are going out. That's the final page of The Weekly Hero this week. We'll be back again next week. Thanks so much for being here, guys, giving us all this great stuff to talk about. We'll be back again next week. And until then, bye-bye.